Today is my 25th presentation on the subject of how to develop internal audit checklist for building design functions. I plan to include in this overview of 818 business activities which are performed by the design functions, list of 6 key activities to develop comprehensive audit checklist, 10 aspects to focus on while developing the checklist, and suggested 21 specimen or examples of the checklist for the building designers and future references, of course. Now, what are these over 800 business activities? In this, the packages which I have considered are structure design, building architecture, facade, external development areas, landscape and softscape, interior designing, external and internal electrical, and HVAC, heat ventilation, air conditioning, etc. And for other packages, the checklist can be similarly developed directly by the auditors. Now, these 800 activities, these include 225 core design activities, where I have given the breakup of design of architecture and design of interiors and design of MV, that is 118, 37 and 70 for these packages which I have listed. Statutory activities 56 overall, which include 37 for design of architecture, 9 for design of interiors, and design for MEP 10 activities. Of course, these activities will increase as the number of packages increase. There are 219 essential supporting activities which are listed in this presentation. Now, these include development of the configuration tables, 21 activities, development of master tables, master data tables, 15 activities, risk assessment, 123 activities, assigning access rights, 60 activities, and total 219. Now, these activities are equally divided amongst each of the functions that is design of architecture, design of interior, and design of MEP. For example, 21 activities for design of configuration tables are at the rate of 7 per function, and so on and so forth. Then there are 318 other activities which designers do perform. These include the activities with respect to the traceability of the activities performed, audit trails, developing of the coding schemes, documentation, documents management system, which are hard copies and soft copies both, making of the budgets, MIS, SOP making, financial authority norms evolving, key performance indicators evolving. So total 318 activities. Again here, these are almost similar activities. In fact, similar activities which are at the rate of 1/3 for the total activity which I have shared. Now, 6 activities are being proposed to develop comprehensive audit checklist. These are: number 1, making a cross-functional team which is comprising of the conventional internal auditors plus experienced but independent professionals drawn from the teams of architecture, interior designing, and MEP functions. Additionally, hiring temporary specialists from independent design firms or other project teams to ensure objectivity. Referring to the SOPs for the 3 design functions from the risk registers which are maintained, identifying the risk level of each design activity which is rated as high or medium or low, and accordingly planning the frequency which could be yearly or monthly or quarterly. Then for developing risk registers, CFT can take inputs from the risk templates given in the annexures which I have listed in this presentation and available in my handbook. Now, clearly defining responsibilities as to who will perform the audit based on the competency matrices. Now, the methodology to perform the internal audit is not being shared yet because it will depend largely on the size, type, complexity of the project and construction organization, competency of the internal auditors and expectation of promoters, and degree of computerization and digitalization in the company. Now, 10 important aspects, irrespective of the approach followed for developing the checklist. 10 important aspects are following: profitability or revenue, quality and accuracy, measurement and quantity, completeness of the activity performed by the designers, statutory compliances met or not met, validity and validation of the appropriateness of the activity, existence and inclusion, occurrences, timeliness, rights and obligation. Now these are the broad aspects which are applicable to commercial functions as well, and I am going to share some of the specimens where you will find these activities, these 10 aspects are mentioned in different color so as to give focus on this. Now specimen of the 5 checklist vis-a-vis the 225 core activities plus 56 statutory activities which I shared in the initial slide. Now designing of the architecture function. Now here the first row I have indicated whether the evidence exists that concept designs and schemes are based on the design calculations of the PCC reinforcement requirements based on the factor of safety and earthquake zone etc. and using the software like STAD and ETAB etc. This is the first activity which is performed. So the audit checkpoint is that whether there is evidence exists that concept designs have been based on these factors which I have indicated. Now more details about these are available in this in the second column, which is chapter 1 and website annexures 21A2. The designing of interior of buildings, whether strategic plans for interior designs are drawn are comprehensive or not. Again this one can refer to the chapter 2 and my website annexure 21A3. Designing of the MEP services for building. Now whether strategic plans for the design and align with the company's vision of profitability. Now these are the very they look very simple statement, but one has to apply mind to arrive at the answer to these questions, and more details can be found in this chapter 3 and my annexure 21A4 and so on. For each of these 225 core activities, the checklists have to be prepared by the internal auditors. Statutory process, for example, meeting the RERA compliances. Here the first checklist point is that whether the builder has obtained the sanctioned plans and statutory approvals before commencing the construction, and did the builder regularly and timely upload the prescribed approvals on the company's website. These are given in the various activities are given in this chapter 1, 2, 3, 4 and annexure 2.14, 20B and 21B in my handbook. Statutory process 2. Complying with the RERA State Regulation and Development Act 2016. Here the focus is on the returns. For example, whether the evidence exists that the builder published on the website of the RERA authority project-wise details with respect to the project registered, units books, units under construction, list of approvals taken and pending vis-a-vis the below aspect like frequency at quarterly or annually, reporting periods Q3, Q4, Q1, Q2 for the financial year, target date and form and date which are to be announced and amended by the statutory authorities, and so on and so forth. Now specimen of the checklist with respect to the other development essential activities, which are, for example, 21 configuration tables and 15 master data tables. Now these are whether the key configuration tables have been correctly identified by each of the 3 design teams, whether the fields within each of the configuration tables they have been identified by each of the 3 design teams have been appropriate and completely and not skipped any. These are given in this chapter 5 and I have given the annexures. Similarly, for the master data tables, whether the key master data tables have been correctly identified by the 3 design teams, and whether the fields within each of the master data tables are accurately and appropriately captured and not skipped any important fields by the 3 design functions. Next is specimen of the 6 checklists vis-a-vis 123 activities which are to be performed by for the risk assessment. The risk assessment is to be done for, as you know, for organization level, for statutory activities, for the core activities, for the configuration tables, for the master data tables, etc., etc., and hence the number of activities is 123. Now here the in the first row I have indicated whether the CFT cross-functional team have been formed or exist for developing a risk management framework and are appropriate in the terms of presentation, level, positions of members who will perform this risk assessment and within the design function. And I have given the chapter number and the annexures where this is available. Details are available on this making of the checklist. Whether the number 2 row, whether parameters such as those below for identifying the risk at the statutory process activity level are comprehensive and appropriate. Now organizational level risk assessed in lecture 13b and likely adverse impact due to non-compliance of this corporate governance and organization reputation. Now one has to see as a auditor in the checklist that these are very appropriately and comprehensively captured. The adverse impacts are appropriately captured. Next point is, are parameters such as those below for identifying the risk at the configuration table level comprehensive and appropriate? Likely adverse impact on the cycle time or throughput time or the process execution for which the configuration table is designed for performing the design activity. Then process not getting executed completely, that is also important checklist parameter. Now next point is whether the template design for classifying the risk at the configuration table are as high or medium or low, robust and comprehensive enough, because the risk they need to be classified as high or medium or low, and whether these parameters template which has been developed for this, is it appropriate or not. Now there are six continuation of that. Fifth point is of the checklist, vis-a-vis the master data tables, whether the aspects such as below for identifying the risk at the master data table appropriate and comprehensive. Number one, likely adverse impact on the sales revenue vis-a-vis the field accessed from the master data table. Likely adverse impact on the project cost vis-a-vis the field accessed from the master data table. Likely adverse impact on the package specification or project package design vis-a-vis the field accessed. Likely adverse impact on the BOQ quality or the construction quality vis-a-vis field accessed from the master data tables. Now these are available, details are available in this lecture 16b on my website and chapter 10 and 1 to 3 6. Likely adverse impact on the statutory conformance vis-a-vis the field access from the master data tables. Sixth checklist point is whether the template design for the classifying the risk at the master data table level as high or medium or low, robust and comprehensive enough. Now I'm giving another one example of the specimen of the checklist vis-a-vis the activities performed for assigning the access rights. Now here checklist must incorporate whether the parameters for developing the segregation of duties concept has been identified completely, such as below for necessary for assigning access rights. Function is very well defined. Process code for assigning access right is defined. Name of the core process, code of the core process, core activity code, activity description. These are very well defined and populated. Another example of the continuation of that, in fact, is that was point 1a, that is at the header level. At the detailed level, one has to say whether there is classification for core activity level. The provision of the following aspects do exist in the checklist. Number one, profile number of the accessing the core activity, access rights for creating, initiating, editing, modifying, deleting, viewing, approving, whether defined properly, function number and name, team number and name, employee level and position. That means the lower level workman, staff, junior, assistant manager, etc. Middle level manager, senior manager, general manager, etc. Senior manager, etc. And the higher level general managers and directors, etc. Now these need to be very well stated in the checklists. Now there are 27 activities which are there performed by the budgets for all these three functions. Now here the important checklist for doing the audit is whether the cross-functional team formed for developing the budget appropriate and correct in terms of representation and levels and position from the different design functions to decide on the following aspects. Number one, designing structure contents of the budget at the organization level, business unit level, designing structure content of the budget at the function level, deciding the frequency like annual, etc., at which the budget must be prepared and reviewed and released, planning timeliness by which budget must be released in advance of the budgeting period, and identifying functional coordinators for releasing the budget, determining the recipient of the budget documents, deciding periodicity of the reviewing the budget. Now these are the checkpoints which are necessary for doing the efficacy of the budget making process. This slide is towards the checking the efficacy of the MIS making process. Similar concepts where the existence of the proper configured cross-functional team who will make this MIS, whether this exists or not, and structure and content of the MIS or the dashboard at the organization level and the business unit level, structure and content of the MIS design at the function level, provisioning of the and incorporating of the budgeted or targeted KPI in the MIS, frequency of the review of this MIS, preparation and review of the MIS, timeliness by which MIS budget must be released, function coordinator for making the and releasing the MIS or dashboard, whether these are appropriate or not, and periodicity of the reviewing of the MIS or dashboard. Now, similarly for checklist, audit checklist for looking at the efficacy of the KPI, how the KPI has been developed. Now, here the checkpoint is that whether for each of the design function important KPIs such as those below can influence the organization level performance and profitability have been captured in the KPI document. The checklist must include that, for example, the number of projects to be designed, timeliness of the design activities, meeting the statutory compliances, comprehensiveness and accuracy of the design, quality of the design, technical support to various project teams, and cost reduction parameters, whether these are part of the KPI or not. Whether performance appraisals at different hierarchical levels is based on the occurrence and actual accomplishment of the KRA, or it is based on hunch. So these are the important parameters which are there for the KPI out of 33 activities which are performed by the designers. Now, you can refer to the various chapters and annexures which I have indicated in my presentation of the 21 specimen or examples in my book called Ethics in the Real Estate and Hospitality Industry, Volume 1. And you can also refer to the various YouTube presentation, and particularly for this checklist, I have given the reference of my YouTube. There are some articles available on the Facebook and LinkedIn where you can look at the various inputs for developing the internal audit checkpoints. Now, book is available on the Kindle format as also paperback format and the Amazon.in and Amazon.com, and also now available at some retail outlet. Thank you very much.